Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion on the Expanse Season 3, Episode 11, Fallen World. We're here to dissect and talk about this episode. And it's funny, it's called Fallen World because the new Jurassic World movie just came out, and that's called Fallen Kingdom. Uh, so it's like Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. I don't know, makes me think of that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the discussion of this episode. Joining me is special guest Darrin from Dean's Reviews. Thanks so much for joining.
Oh, always a pleasure here, Mark. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to diving into God, come on. Every episode with The Expanse is awesome. And yeah, I'm sorry I missed last week. That was incredible, but we're going to talk Fallen World today.
Cool. And also joining me, Akton Tamko, as always. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here talking about The Expanse as usual.
Cool. And let's just start with your overall thoughts on the episode. Like for me, I said in my review, there's no such thing as a bad episode of season 3 of The Expanse for me. I think the season overall has been really good. It's probably going to be up there as one of my favorite seasons. But that being said, this is probably one of the weaker episodes for me in terms of pacing. I felt a bit too slow in some places and a bit too fast in other places, but there were some great moments in there, some good character moments that I really enjoyed, really liked. I just think maybe it could have been the script could have been slightly bit tighter. And of course, I had the snooty book thingy, book reader you had on where I'm like, it wasn't as good as the book. But anyway, what were your overall thoughts after this episode?
Well, actually, Mark, I was watching your review and just kind of nodding and going, yep, because I completely agree with you 100% on the pacing, especially the specific scenes you pointed out being too slow and being too rushed. I 100% felt the same way when I was watching it. That said, I do think its purpose, it's kind of the setting us up for basically what is a two-part finale next week. Setting up episode, setting the chess pieces, putting them in place. So it served its purpose, but I absolutely did agree with you on some of the pacing issues of this episode. And we'll talk about that as we get to each specific scene.
Yeah, I can't disagree with all that. It's funny because while I was getting ready for our little discussion here, I was rewatching the episode. And, yes, it's slower. It is one of those middle episodes where we've got to reset pieces and move things around and kind of see the effects of everything that's happened. So, I get its placement, but I thought it also did a really good job at setting sort of a creepiness level, a very uncomfortable feel with the after effects of all the ships stopping and the damage and the wounds that each of the ships were dealing with. So in some ways, I thought that it did a really good job of like setting that kind of creepy, floating, are you alone, who is alive type kind of feeling. So I really kind of enjoyed that part of it.
Oh yeah, definitely agree with you there. And just real quick, I got a couple of comments in the chat saying that my voice is muffled. So just let me know if it sounds better, if it's still an issue, if I have to check the equipment or anything like that. Are you guys hearing me okay?
I'm hearing you all right. There's a little muffliness to it, but I can hear you.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll just have to make do. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into this. Yeah. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this episode. Let's start with the Thomas Prince storyline, with the storyline with Anna, because this is what you just touched on, Darrin. I totally agree. Is it was really creepy seeing the after effects, and this is one thing I thought this episode did really well. Something that they translated really well from the books, and it was great seeing it on screen, seeing Anna go out there and just dead bodies floating everywhere, and she was having to navigate these dead bodies. And in my review, I complained a bit about how she didn't know about how blood didn't pool and zero G, and how like internal bleeding was a death sentence, and a lot of people. So I got a lot of pushback on that, saying, well, because my thinking was she lives in the air where space travel is commonplace. She's been to space before, but there's a lot of pushback with saying, well, she hasn't really been in zero G before, and she says that. Okay, so I have to admit that's fair enough. I do admit that, but it did seem, I don't know, it still felt to me like it was kind of exposition heavy. It's the kind of dialogue is like, oh, well, as you know, in zero G, just so the audience can know what's going on. It's still, even though it's kind of excusable that she wouldn't know about that, it still felt like exposition heavy. But on the other hand, and as I said in my review, I totally forgive the episode for that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because this is really important information that we need to have, and it's actually one of the driving sort of factors in this episode in particular. So I didn't mind it, and I ultimately, as you said, Darren, the whole scene was really creepy, and I thought really well pulled off. But anyway, Afkin, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't have a problem with that. It made total sense to me that she wouldn't know that. I mean, she's been in space before. That doesn't mean she knows every detail of what happens to people when they get injured in zero G gravity. Yeah, I honestly didn't have any problem with it. But as far as we're all seeing with just kind of I loved it. Just kind of like the little blood bubbles just sort of floating in the air. It was definitely very creepy. And the scene where Anna's just walking around the ship, and all these people are just there's just all these kind of dead bodies. I actually thought at first like everybody was dead except for her and Melba until she went into the sick bay or whatever they call it on the ship, and I was like, holy shit, it was just her and Melba left. And I'm also glad she had the line where she was like, oh, I was taking a nap and I was strapped in, because otherwise I was like, why is she okay? I didn't get it, so I'm glad that they threw that line in there to she was all right. But yeah, the whole thing it set up a nice little creepy feel. I really enjoyed that, and I thought it really set up nicely for kind of the what had happened.
Just a real quick question for you, Darren, before you go next is, did you really get the sense from last week's episode when they showed the purple haze get the hit? Did you sort of expect this sort of aftermath carnage, or was this something that came up as a bit unexpected?
No, I'd have to say that it was kind of surprised. You know, it's one of those obvious things that you think of immediately once you see it, but it's not something that I had totally was expecting for. So when that kind of saw it, it was like, oh my God, what? Oh, you know, it kind of went with that moment for me, which I kind of enjoyed. In fact, I was thinking a better title for this episode is The Importance of Wearing Your Seatbelt. Because yeah, that's pretty much the effects were. And again, while I love the kind of horror-ish setting, you know, the sort of creepy feeling of the bodies floating around, in some ways there was a little question. I was watching the show with my wife, and we both had the kind of question is, while you could see and guess what all of this damage was, there wasn't sort of a conclusive idea, since everybody was kind of evenly spaced all around and just kind of floating and bloody. It was like, well, what exactly happened to them? I mean, you kind of understood it was slam against the bulkheads, but I think, you know, if you had one that were kind of like clustered in an area and the walls kind of a little bit more, you know, I didn't see that was necessarily entirely clear. I understood what it was, but we did have the kind of question of why did Anna survive? And I almost kind of missed the whole she was strapped in because she was sleeping. So there was a little bit of unclarity with that, but again, I kind of went with the whole idea as it was.
Yeah, and I do think that was cool how and they did. I guess maybe they get into this a bit later with they showed Naomi, she was strapped in, she was okay, but then she goes, well, it's not that the others weren't strapped in, but now they're okay. So yeah, so that's basically the idea that anyone who wasn't like strapped in, who was just roaming around freely, those mostly the people who got severely injured were killed. But yeah, I like that. I thought that played out really well. So then we see, so Anna comes across Melba, and of course, she's broken her arm, so she takes her 6 days to get healed. But then she gets called from her friend Tilly, and she goes in and finds out she's dying. And Tilly reveals that, hey, that Clarissa, I like how Tilly even said, it's your fault because you told me to help people, and she tried to kill me because of it. And she reveals that Clarissa and Melba are the same person. So Anna now knows that what the score is with that's, and also that scene where she died. I actually thought that was a really touching scene, and I liked how her tears sort of pulled into zero G. That was very effective, and it was a well acted scene, and that even you can see how this is tearing Anna up inside, even though they weren't the best of friends who were still watching someone die like that. That was kind of her fault. Again, the second time after the guy killed himself. But anyway, yeah, that was really interesting. And then of course, Anna goes off on a hunt to find Melba because of this. But anyway, what are you guys' thoughts on? Because one thing I wasn't clear about in this scene is whether or not Anna knew from what Tilly said that Melba destroyed the UN ship, or she just knew that she wanted to kill Holden and tried to kill Tilly. Maybe is that all she knows, or do you think she like put 2 and 2 together and figure out that she wanted to frame Holden?
I got the impression that she did not know about that at all. She just knew that she killed Tilly, and then she was really trying to kill Holden. I don't know how she would get from point A to point B, like how she would get to, oh, you blew up that ship. Like, I don't know where that would even come from for her. So I really don't think at all that she thought that, but it doesn't matter. She doesn't need to know that. The fact that she killed Tilly and then she's on this vengeance against Holden is enough. So I don't think she knows that, but I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I didn't put together that she guessed that either, and I don't really think that there was time for her to kind of necessarily process all of that. She was pretty much go from that moment forward. So yeah, I didn't see that at all. One thing I did forget to mention before is that kind of I thought was, I don't know, funny, interesting with Anna is her getting the little injector, the little hypo spray or whatever that was. It was like the fix-it hypo spray, because you just go up to everyone, shh, oh, okay, we're awake and we can go. It's the next person, shh, all right, we can awake and we can go. And I know it was probably just like, a stimulant, a painkiller or something, combination like that. But I just think it was kind of funny. It was like, she found the fix-it spray. Excellent. These exist in space. That's how you get around.
Well, I personally give the Expanse a lot of leeway on that because they've shown they had like really high-tech sort of medical, futuristic medicine and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. It totally made sense. I just thought that it was kind of funny because it was like every time she found someone, it was like, and I inject you in with this. And she found the next person, and I inject you. Oh, Melba, you hurt? Oh, here, I'll get you. It was, yeah.
Yeah, Cardinal Doomsday points out as a hyper spray. But, yeah, like a lot of people in the chat seem to agree with you guys that they don't think that Anna knew that Melba blew up the UN ship. So you're probably right. I think your line of reasoning is pretty spot on there. I was just maybe hoping that she knew. But yeah, it is interesting that Anna sort of goes on this like quest, like she takes and this is another thing like I had slight disagreement about. It's because I thought like. I understand why Anna wanted to deal with this herself, because I said this, because she feels responsible for Tilly's death, and she feels responsible for not spotting Melba, not realizing what was going on. So she takes it personally, and she wants to go out and take care of her herself. But I don't think that's very smart because she's a priest. She should actually like get like a cop or security or someone. I mean, I understand they just suffered a crisis and all the security officers would probably just blow her off anyway. Like, yeah, whatever. Too busy to deal with that right now. So I understand that aspect of it too. But again, it doesn't seem like the smartest move. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think she was really thinking it through. I mean, I think it was just purely emotional. first of all, she fucked up and this guy killed himself, and now she fucked up and caused Tilly to be killed. And Tilly told her flat out, yeah, it's kind of so. I mean, it was purely like, I gotta fix this. I've got to do something about it. I don't think she stopped to think. Maybe I should go get somebody who knows what they're doing. And I think it was just purely acting on emotion, like, I've got to take care of this because I fucked up. But the thing that you're right, that if even if there are any authority people around anymore, that they would probably be like, yeah, we're kind of busy, go away. Like, I don't think it would have helped anyway. It probably would have just would have made her take longer. So I don't think that it's an issue that she didn't, because I don't think they would have helped her anyway. But I can understand why she didn't even think of it, because she's just purely going off of emotion. So I didn't have any problem with it.
And yeah, I like what Belinda says in the chat, because that Anna was all high and just went for it.
Yeah, honestly, that was one of those things at the end. It took me a moment to figure out that was her. I was like, who is this in the suit? My wife's like, that's Anna. I'm like, oh, that's right, because the distance and the helmet and everything. So it kind of took a moment to see it. And yes, in one way, it is not really the smartest move. I mean, obviously, if she is not smart enough to know the travels and problems with zero-G and injuries, is she able to get onto a thruster pack and shoot across the certain expanse in this speed limit, of 28 meters per second or whatever that it was, and catch up on this tiny little dot? I mean, that's, I would think, is sort of a skilled maneuver, probably computer assisted, I would guess. So yeah, it was shocking, but also, yeah, Acton, I think you hit the point right there. She wasn't paying attention, and a crew member died. She didn't do the right thing, and Tilly ended up dying as she is feeling responsible. She knows the danger and is just crazily going to try and stop it. I think she just she's one of those leaps before she looks type kind of person. And now she's on the Rossi too. Everybody ends up on the Rossi sooner or later.
It just pulls all the main characters. Has the gravity pull main characters.
Yeah, there's just a main character trajectory that just kind of pulls them all in.
Actually, in the show, it's a bit more random, but the books actually have like a strict formula. Like the first half of the book will introduce a new character, and the second half of the book, that new character will come aboard the Rocinante. Like happened in book 1, 2, and 3. It's like, but the show mixes it up a bit, so at least it's a bit more random. Anyway, let's move over. Speaking of the Rocinante.
Can I just interject one quick thought before we move on? Just because we're talking about the Rocinante. Notice how they completely abandoned that whole thing where they changed the name of the Rocinante. Like they just said, actually, this was a horrible idea. Let's pretend like we never did that.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, as an audience, I really appreciate that they did that, because I couldn't remember the name of the new ship, and they just did that to be disguised. It's the Rossi was the important one, so yeah, I'm glad they went back. But yeah, that was kind of funny.
Anyway, so yeah, let's get into Rocinante. Well, we start with Naomi, where she's on her ship, and as we clearly see her, she was strapped in, so she was a bit hurt by it, but not completely injured, so she's able to get out of her ship. But I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but I get the impression that she was trying to move her ship to turn on the engines to get it to go, and that's why her console exploded on her, because of just that purple thing, which is stopping him from moving. But whatever happened, it explodes, and it was really cool seeing the fire in zero-G as well. The effects for that were really cool. And Naomi, of course, jumps out into space. But yeah, so any just quick thoughts on that scene, the fire, or why her console exploded, or anything like that?
No, I mean, again, it's kind of it motivates her to get up and out of the ship. From a visual standpoint, it looked very cool. I was a little curious why everything was moving kind of so slowly and expansive, and but I guess again that's just fire in zero-G. But yeah, and then when she opened up the door, it was like did she do that just to put out the fire, or was she planning on going out that way? And I guess she, with the controls out, ship's kind of useless at that point anyway, so it sort of makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it was a cool little basic intro, and it got her moving towards the Rossi. So yeah, it worked.
Was it just me, or do you think that it blew up because she tried to move the ship?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure with that because the freezing the ship did seem to do damage to various of the other ships. So I didn't understand whether it was she just tried to maneuver and that just activated a short that was going to be happening anyway, or not. Yeah, I wasn't entirely clear with that. I just figured the ship was busted. Yeah, she was trying to do something, and this was just the result of the damage. That's sort of how I got it.
Yeah, I just kind of thought it was kind of the result of the damage that took place. I honestly didn't put any thought into it at all. It was like, yeah, whatever. It exploded. I didn't really analyze it, why it exploded or anything.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Cool. So then later, I was like, this is one thing about this episode. I thought it took took a really long time before we actually got the roast of that day. I was really curious about what happened to Amos and Alex, but I think they played off of that. I think it was past the half-hour mark in this episode. We get a scene where Naomi goes on the roast of that day. It's actually cool that we had no idea what happened to Amos and Alex, because that makes the scene so much more tension-filled, so much more creepy, where she's crawling around the ship, trying to find them, and she can't find them, and they weren't. I was generally like, oh, what the hell happened to them? And then she comes across the mess hall and sees all the food floating and finds Alex there. So yeah, I like that scene. I thought it was really tense, but maybe could have been a bit shorter. I think maybe it went on for a tad bit too long. That's just my thinking. What you guys think? What were your thoughts on this, Akton?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I like that scene. It was really creepy, but I also, personally, I never thought that Alex and Amos were dead. I didn't think that the show was going to kill them off like this. So, I mean, I knew she would eventually find them being okay, maybe, probably knocked out, as they basically were. But yeah, with that in mind, like, I knew she was going to find them eventually. It probably took a little bit too long for her to find him. I mean, yeah, you're walking a fine line there. You've got to walk the line between having a lot of tension and suspense and just dragging the scene out a little too long. And I thought they crossed that line just a little bit, where it was making the scene out a little bit too long. But it wasn't too bad. No, certainly not as offensive as another scene that we'll talk about, or another that we'll talk about later, that I thought was way too much, which I know you pointed out in review, but you'll get to that. But that I don't think was as bad as that, but it was probably a touch too long.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you guys. It did seem a little driven at it. Again, it was long enough that I was worried about Alex and Amos. And I'm like, look, the Rossi isn't really that big of a ship. I mean, it's sizable. It's got all its different rooms and places. But yeah, it was drawn out like, God, how many levels is she going through? How many places is she looking? It just seemed like it took longer to find everyone than it really should have. And, it was nice to have that moments of the, oh, are you okay? And those little bits of discovery. But yeah, they probably could have dropped a couple of minutes off that scene easily, and it would have moved. It wouldn't have felt sort of drawn out. Yeah, I see exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm trying to chat says that I was worried that Melba got to Alex Amos before Naomi did. So I do think there was some tension there, even though intellectually they're not going to kill these characters off. It was still, yeah. I think there was still some tension.
Well, that was it. And I think that was why, again, I got concerned, but I was also confused. And I think that's where maybe actually you're talking about where the line got crossed, because you're worried like, oh my God, are they okay? And then it's like, well, where the hell are they? I mean, how many places could they have been? Are they hiding inside of a bulkhead room? Or, I mean, it's like, are they in a closet? It's like, what? you know, what happened here on the ship. So yeah, I didn't totally think that Melba may have gotten to them already, but I was kind of curious, like, is there this whole other sub story that was going on the Rossi that we missed, or we're going to have to be caught up on, you know, like 2 hours earlier, a little flashback bit, which I'm really glad they didn't do. But yeah, I think that was the fault of it going too long. It was like you get the tension and then you get the confusion. and that confusion line, I think, was too far.
Yeah, during this scene,
I thought they were just,
go ahead.
yeah, I always thought they were just doing this to build attention. Like, I never for a second thought Melba got them or anything happened to Alex and Amos. I knew all along they're perfectly fine. But I just felt like, well, we're really trying to draw out the attention. And it worked to an extent. But after a while, I was like, okay, just find Alex and Amos already.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. In fact, during this scene, I was like, from one perspective, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Actually, seeing the whole Lost Nate set and seeing all the different rooms. I didn't know there were so many different rooms and different hallways, and we get to explore the set. But it would have been nicer to see that in like a behind the scenes thing where he's coming here is the set of the Lost Nate, rather than taking the time out in the middle of this episode. But yes. Anyway. So when you get the scene where she does find Alex, and I thought it was funny. It's like, oh, you know, because Alex is like in this sort of delirious state where he's, you know, severely injured. And he's just like, oh, Holden went off with Miller. Like, what? Miller? And I think she kind of did push that off to delirium, but I'm sure we'll get into that later on. And also, like, the scene with her and Amos, I also thought was really touching. How, you know, she sort of just cradled him because he seemed a bit more seriously injured. And she was like worried about him. It shows the kind of connection that the two of them had. And then and Amos says, "Oh, you changed your hair," and knocks out, which is kind of funny too. And then later, when he wakes up in the sick bay, he doesn't seem that thrilled. He just asks, like, "Are you here? Are you back just to help? Or are you back to stay?" He's like, "I'm here to stay. I never should have left." And he's just like, "Okay." And it doesn't seem like it seems like he's still upset with her for leaving. So. Seems like that might take more time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a hard time reading his reaction. I wasn't sure if if he's just still upset with her, or if he's just like out of it and still just like, okay, whatever. So I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how to read his reaction there.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually saw it, and I guess I looked at my wife and I was like, wow, that's a lot of emotion coming from Amos. I almost saw it like the opposite way, like he was processing it, and his asking of those questions was his way of inquiring, you know, is she here to stay? Is that openness? And then once she did the whole family thing, the okay was just, I mean, like that's the highest level of emotional processing that he could do. And maybe it wore him out, you know, so he just turned away and relaxed. So yeah, it does leave the question up in the air, but seeing how Amos has reacted to things and how the actor has sort of played his emotional processing, I got it as like that was the biggest welcome back that he could possibly give at that moment. Maybe not ready to admit that it's like, yeah, I'm still upset, but I'm really glad you're here. You know, maybe that's his sort of middle road, but yeah, that's how I got it. And it was also funny because I think I noticed her hair like 2 seconds before Amos said the line. I was like, ooh, there's some purple in her hair. That looks really nice. And that's the first thing that he said. So I kind of appreciated that.
Yeah, that was cool. And I think, yeah, you guys definitely could be right. And maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Maybe it is him just being, you know, drug induced or in a lot of pain. Just being, okay, whatever, and he can't put up any more emotion. But just, the way he just sort of looked away and kind of glared made me think, oh, he's upset. But it could be drugged out. So it could be either way. But yeah.
And who knows what type of internal damage they're all suffering, you know, and the body stops and the organs keep going, you know, that's one thing I was hoping they might have touched on. It seemed to do a lot of the impact damage they talked about, but I was kind of curious, like, are they going to talk about internal, you know, organs separating from, you know, other important parts, arteries and stuff. So, but anyway, yeah, that's minor thing.
Yeah, Belinda in the chat says that I don't think Amos will be able to trust her. If that's a possibility, maybe I think maybe his trust in her has been damaged. He never look at her the same way. But it's obvious that she looks at him the same. I found those things really nice.
Well, and that could be the case. I mean, I think they kind of left it where you could question where it could go either way. I know how I sort of read into it, but I think that they kind of intentionally left it is he still mad? Can, like Belinda's saying, can he still trust him? Or is it just like, wow, we were messed up and you're here and you're helping and you're back and we're going to be okay. Maybe we are a family. It's with Amos, he doesn't give a whole lot. So you got to kind of guess how he's processing things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gotta say, I like the overall like randomness of the event. I don't know if they're calling it the big slowing down, the big deceleration, is how like we were talking earlier about how Anna was lucky that she just so happened to be asleep and strapped in, so she was fine. And I was thinking with Alex because Alex spends most of his time in the pilot seat strapped in, so I thought, oh, surely he'll just be in the pilot seat, so he'll be fine. But he was unlucky because it just so happened that he was in the mess hall getting something to eat when all this went down. So I did like the sort of chaotic randomness of it. Cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this scene where Melba comes aboard the Rosinante and tries to fights Naomi and sort of tries to find Holden. And Naomi, I did like how she was very adamant that even if he was here, I wouldn't tell you anyway. There's a big like sort of screw you to her, and like the fight scene was somewhat thrilling. I did like the zero G jumping around, how Naomi used zero G to advantage. It shows that she was a lot more used to it than Melba was, but then again, Melba had a powered suit, so Naomi was at a disadvantage in that regard. And seeing those big claw things, that was really interesting as well. And then Anna just shows up out of nowhere, zap, and it's over with, which felt kind of like a Deus Ex Machina to me. And then one thing I kept thinking about is if Anna, okay, I get Anna was following Melba, so she put on the suit and followed Melba, and I understand why they didn't show that because they would deflate the thing at the end. But so Melba never noticed that there was someone floating behind her, following her the whole time she was going to the Rosinante. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe someone in chat says it. That's possible. That seems a bit iffy to me. And here's the thing, for me, and I don't know if this is just me because I read the books, but in the books, this scene was a lot longer. It was really intense. It was really suspenseful. In fact, I will say, like, before I watched this part of season 3, they covered book 3. There were 3 particular specific moments in the books I was really looking forward to. One was Rosinante has to go into the ring to escape everyone who's trying to fire them after they've been trying to fly over the ship. And that was amazing. I thought the show did an amazing job. 2 was when Holden activates the proto-molecule thingy and we get the visions, and that was so awesome. I was so gratified. And the third thing was this scene where Melba goes in the Rosinante and Anna has to stop her. I was like, wow, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait for the show to do it. And I was just massively disappointed. I was like, really? This is all? She just shows up and zaps them and that's all there is to it? I don't know. Well, having not read the books, what was your impression of this scene, Akton?
So, Mark, read the books. I'm still on the same page with you. I'm like, that's it? That was it? Like, it was very anticlimactic. Like, very. Like, I haven't read a word of the books, and I was really disappointed in this scene. It was just like, is that it for Melba? I mean, is that it for Melba? You pointed out in your review that was her stun gun thing, so she's just stunned. So I guess she's probably, maybe she could still be a factor, I guess, but that can't be it for her, can it? That's not it for Melba, is it? Or are you not allowed to say?
I'm not allowed to say.
Yeah. I didn't get the impression that she was
would be well. Yeah, but I mean, even if she's not dead, is that it for her as far as being an adversary that she's done? Like that couldn't be. And I thought with Aaron Wright, we all agreed that was anticlimactic, and I was like, "Oh, Aaron Wright's got to be coming back. That can't possibly be his end." But it was. That was the end. That was the end of him. It was just very anticlimactic. So I hope that Melba at least is able to play a bigger role. If this is it, then this is going to be like the most just a big. I don't know, big bomb of a storyline, honestly, if there's not more to it than that. But even if there is more to it than that, I still agree that this whole fight scene was just incredibly anticlimactic. Like, I just couldn't believe that was it.
Yeah, like I said, I'd rewatched it before we jumped on here for the discussion, and I was curious if they might have dropped like a little hint when they do that big shot from space and it goes up onto Melba or Clarissa, and then we see her maneuvering up to the Rossi. I kept looking behind, like, are we going to see Anna like way in the distance? Is there going to be some little hint? Like they actually say that she's behind, but it's so far back, nobody's really going to pay attention on the first watch. And no, they didn't do that. It looked just like Clarissa just all by herself. So was kind of disappointed with that. I would love for them to left a hint because, yeah, for as much of the length that the Naomi search through the Rossi was overdone, if they had taken those 2 minutes and moved it to the fight, I think that would have been a much better use of time and have them more than just the one room right there in front of the opening. She would have run around. There might have been just a little more action, just a little more back and forth. Because otherwise, Anna would have had to have found a suit, locked in, gotten into it, locked in, checked the computer, get the thrusters on, get out the door, in basically that 30-second long fight sequence. Because she couldn't have got there any faster than Clarissa did, because the speed limit. So that would have, I think, justified that time. Because otherwise, like I said, my wife said, "Oh, that's Anna." And I was like, "Oh, okay, she followed her out." But part of me was like, wow, that's really fast. I mean, she must have just been like, boom, right out the door. And Ion Trone, I think, was asking here in the chat. It was like, she's a priest. A priest. Where does she understand all these 0G and maneuverings and thruster packs? So yeah, given a little bit more time, I think would have added the tension and wouldn't have made Anna's arrival seem so much of a almost Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, and I would actually go further and say that they could have taken like 10 or 15 minutes from the time spent with Romer and Ashford trapped in that room and maybe put it into this fight scene. But again, that gets into perhaps the answer here is budget. Perhaps they just ran out of money. And so, those scenes were obvious. They're what you call, what they call bottle shows. So, like, they focus on those because they can do, and that doesn't cost any money. It seems like they ran out of money to do a great, action here. And if that's the case, then I guess I can't fault the show too for that.
No, but they could have just done it and done like some searching through the fight, where she gets away and she dumps, and then Clarissa's after her, and you get some tension built up with Naomi trying to sneak around and trying to get around to an exit or a comm or something. So, I mean, they could have stretched that a little differently if they had wanted to. I think you're right. I think it was just their pacing was just off this episode and what they wanted to focus on. I think they wanted to build the tension and just get to the action super fast.
So any final thoughts on the scene before we move on, Afghan?
Nope. I'm
All right.
good.
Cool. All right. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the Behemoth. Let's get into the Behemoth storyline. And yes. All right. Okay, so this is the cool concept. I did like some of the interactions between Ashford and Drummer. I did like the fact how one of them was stuck on one side of the machine and the other was stuck on the other. And so the only option was to get it upward. But they were trying really hard the whole time to get it, and everything they tried failed. And that felt really dragged out to me. There's some of their interactions I did like, but some of it again felt a bit dragged out to me. I mean, do we really need to get like how long do we spend there? Like 20 minutes or so. Maybe it just felt that long. like with them singing songs and whatnot. And I did get that, you know, I did like how they got to understand each other better. And I did like that aspect of it. And like seeing them work together when she was pulling the little claw thing and she was giving him directions. Like it shows them they're sort of bonding and learning to work together. But it just seems so cliche. Like I've seen this done on TV shows dozens of times. Like in my review, I gave the example of Star Trek Next Generation, this episode called Disaster. They have these people trapped in a room, they have to bond. And it's not, this is one out of like a million examples, TV shows, movies that have done this cliche where two people don't really like each other because of some disaster. You get trapped in an elevator, just trapped in a room, they have to bond, work together, get out. And not, so again, I'm not saying this to bash the whole scene, bash the whole concept. I just think it should have been way shorter, in my opinion. Anyway, Darrin, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I don't know. The length of it didn't necessarily bother me. I mean, yeah, from an efficiency standpoint, it probably could have been. But to me, this was the two characters hashing it out. And you're right, this is very tropish. There is, that you mentioned, it's like, wow, how many shows can you have of the, let's trap two characters. One of them has to be wounded and the other one has to try and rescue him. But they have to find a bond and hash through all of their stuff. So, yes, it was a bit tropish in that sense. But I liked that they did get to kind of hash this stuff out. I wanted to see a little bit more from Ashford's character and what his kind of real inner, what his self was, what his approach was. I know that we've talked a couple of times throughout this of what's his actual motivation. Was he trying to overthrow Drummer? Is he there to actually kind of work with her? And I think they did a lot in this scene to sort of settle that out. I loved his discussion of her doubting where he's coming from, and his line back is, you know, Belcher sometimes have to, you know, we have to sometimes put away what we want in order for the greater good. And I want that to be the new, you know, what defines a Belcher as opposed to our individuality. And I like that from a character standpoint for Ashford. I liked seeing it. Again, it made him more interesting as opposed to just sort of a scheming villain, that he does have this kind of larger hope and picture, and his experiences sort of, you know, contributed to that. I mean, what did Drummer say at the end is, I guess not all optimists are dead. I was wrong, you know. So I liked what they did with the scene. But yeah, I guess that, you know, from an efficiency standpoint, it could have been a little shorter.
Yeah, I was bored with these scenes. They were so cliche, and I thought exactly what you thought the Star Trek Next Generation episode through. But I mean, there's been a million things. I think I saw an episode of Benson in the early 1980s where a couple people were trapped in an elevator. It's done so many times. And, you know, I mean, I do understand having to get these characters together and hash half at least. I definitely didn't think that, yeah, it needed to be as long as it was. And I'm sure Mark has in a minute, but it's interesting after all of this, Ashford's kind of reaction, like how he sort of takes over the ship. And I know you're probably planning to talk about that too. Interesting, after all of that, he still kind of behaves the way that he does later on. So it almost makes it even less worth it than it already was. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea of these two characters hashing things out. I just thought it was way too long. Like, we didn't need the scene completed. But that's how I feel about it.
Like I said in earlier episodes, like episode 7, I love, like, these are two great actors. Like, I love seeing them act together and interact with each other. You got David Stratton, of course, is a veteran actor, and Cara G, who's fairly new, but she actually holds her own against them, and they play off each other very well. But I think they overdid it with this thing. I think it was too much, and it's what's the saying? Less is more, I think, in that regard. And yeah, and the other thing is that I mentioned is, like, I kind of predicted from the very beginning. I knew how it was going to end. As soon as they said, "Oh, if we roll this forward, one way kills you," rolled the other way, it killed me. It was obvious to me that they were going to have to do that, and that would happen. It was obvious to me that Drummer would sacrifice herself. Now, here's another question I have real quick to pose. Does anyone think that Ashford, when Drummer was like starting the thing, and Ashford's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Does anyone think that he actually thought that she was going to kill him and have that move the other way, or did he know the whole time that she was going to sacrifice herself, and that's why he was upset?
Oh, I didn't. That didn't occur to me. I didn't think that at all. But I mean, it's possible, I suppose. But that didn't cross my mind. I thought he just thought she was going to kill herself.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I didn't see that as him being concerned that she was going to go after him, especially just the way that she was talking. She was talking like a captain ready to sacrifice herself because that's the better choice to do. I didn't see her as someone that would kill him to save herself. That was an interaction, and I didn't think that he expected that from her. So yeah, I think, yeah, I didn't see that. To me, it was more of the concern of what are you doing to yourself, not what are you going to do to me.
Yeah, you guys must have a better opinion of Ashford than I do. Too bad Don Willie wasn't here. Don Willie would be like, "Yeah, Ashford, he's a bastard." He was, but yeah.
Well, but also, like, I wouldn't think that he would think that she would do that. Like, I have a higher opinion of her, regardless of what his motivations might be. He would know that she would never do that to him. That she's better than that.
Yeah, that's true. But I think they have played up the sort of conflict between them that she doesn't really like him. So I don't know. I thought maybe he thought it was in the realm of possibility, but you guys are probably right. Maybe he just knew that she was herself. It was interesting.
Well, it does, I think, get interesting once we see. I mean, what Akton was saying, and which I'm glad that you had brought up, is what happens once they do get free. I mean, in some manner, he is pointing out, I would have been dead if it wasn't for her. That Drummer did, which I liked. But then once he gets on the wide beam, and he's like, I'm Ashford, the captain of the ship. And, this ship, my ship, can spin. And I was like, oh, come on. Don't tell me that then you're going to go this way. Because, again, I find him more of an interesting character as a seasoned veteran who has learned to look beyond himself and go past the expectations of everyone. I like that aspect of character, to see him to do the whole thing, like you said, Acton, that whole speech and the whole connection and the whole stuff about it's got to be beyond us and it's got to be for the belt, and I want that to be what belters are all about. And then he gets the captainship, and he's not like acting captain. He's not like our ship, the belt ship. He's like, I'm the captain, and it's my ship. I was like, ah.
All right, yeah, let's go ahead and get all into the scene, and because my interpretation of the sort of contrast between him, and I think part of the reason why Drummer did sacrifice herself is because of the conversation she got with him. And I think he was sincere, and I do believe that he was like, I just want to do what's best for the belt. I'm not really that concerned about my own vanity. And I think he was sincere in saying that. I think she believed in it as part of the reason, like, well, one of us needs to get out of here, the captain of the ship. So if it's not going to be me, it's going to be you. So I think she sort of trusted it. And I do think that his intentions were good because I think part of his intention for spinning the drum, which, as I said, was a dangerous thing for to rip the ship apart. Part of it, like, he was looking directly at her when he was saying that. She's like, she just saved my life. I'm alive because of her. And I'm going to return the favor. I don't care the risk. I am going to make sure that she survives. So I think all that was sincere. I do think that his gratitude for her and his wanting her to survive is all sincere, but he just has an inherent lust for power, I think. And I think that took him and sort of just took over as soon as he was on that bridge, and he was like feeling triumphant from spinning the drum. And he went and climbed up on his high little balcony to look down at all the peasants and be like, spin the drum, and then talking. And like you said, Darrin, you said it very well when he was talking to all the other ships. It was like, my ship, I'm the captain. And so I think I understood that contrast because I think it was like he does feel gratitude toward Drunk. On the other hand, he thinks he should be captain, and he's reveling in this power. of being captain.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to agree with that, and I think Ion Trona in the chat mentioned something which I think is a good alternate viewpoint is he using that title just as a uniting thing that they don't talk about acting captain in the belt, you know, it was just the title was passed, she know that she's out of it, I am the captain now, maybe I'll give it back when it's all done. And that's just the way to solidify the position of the ship and the belt and the offer, so that there's no big questions or anything amongst the rest of the ships that he's asking to go ahead and send their wounded in, because it's a very magnanimous, and it's very much a way of saying the belt, you know, welcomes everyone. We're here for you, especially with the whole Holden thing before, that the belt doesn't want anyone here. This is a way of reversing that. So, yeah, is he grasping power, or is he taking that position just to get things done smoothly and properly?
Well, the one line to me, which is an indication that he's not just doing things to get things done smoothly, and the indication that he is grasping for power, is when he says, my ship. Because at first he says this ship, but then he corrects himself. My ship! And he doesn't need to say that to the other people. Yeah. To me, that was the clearest indication that he was thinking of, he was getting a bit power hungry. But anyway,
yeah, and I also agree with what you said about how he had to stand up above everybody on that little balcony thing and look down below the little peasants like he's the king up there on the balcony. And like I believe somebody said in the chat earlier that it was Iron Throne who said that Ashford went King Joffrey. I am the king. Like, and I believe Tywin Lannister's line was, those who have to say they are king are not true kings, or something like that. So it was very, very much felt like that to me. I am the captain. This is my ship. So no, at all that this was a uniting thing. Like he had to say it to make it. I don't buy any of that crap. No, this was him taking power. 100% is the way that I saw it.
I also like what Iron Train says, is the behemoth is mine by rights. The one true captain of the behemoth.
The one true captain.
But I think All Your Money makes a good point, too, that maybe some people don't know their full ambition until the spotlight's on them. Ashford's a natural born politician. I think that's a very good point. And that's how I see it. I think that he didn't really know going ahead that but once he had that power, he just got drunk with it.
Yeah, I could totally go with that. It's like, I wasn't really meaning to be the captain, even though I thought I was, but since you passed the mantle on to me, it's mine now.
But anyway, just any quick thoughts on the whole spinning the drum thing, which I thought was actually a really intense thing. Also, as we mentioned, he was because I mentioned earlier, it was a major plot point that the blood can't drain in zero G, so a lot of like internal injuries or death sentence. This was like a huge thing because none of the ships could create thrust, so it was like a huge deal for them to spin the drum and to invite everyone on. And I do think that Ashford, this is the right move, not just morally, but politically, because it's showing that the belt is a part of the greater community and willing to help out. And so I think it was a really great.
Given his whole I am the captain and this is my ship thing, it made me think more that it wasn't really a moral decision at all, but it was all political. That it was all about how it looks, how it makes the belt looks, how it makes him look. Generally giving a shit about these people. That's the impression I got after his whole I am the captain, this is my ship speech.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
I wonder if there's any Mormons on any of the other ship that just show up the behemoth and they're like, hey, this is our ship. But yeah, I think it's probably a good political move. I mean, it is a smart move. It does unite everyone out there. So I think that that's, whether it's magnanimous or political, I think that that is the natural move for Ashford to make. And that totally made sense. I did have one thought, though, is that how much do they have to spin? Is that within the 28 meters per second speed limit? If it spins too fast, would that violate anything that's going on within the realm? That was the one thought that I had, that I didn't know if they really addressed it all. But yeah, I was kind of curious about that with the spin. Was it just meant to be 1/3 G? Was that as fast as they could go?
I think they said 1/10 G. I thought they said 1/10.
Okay.
So it was yeah. So my impression was much slower than.
Okay, yeah, but would you think that would have violated? Do you think that was still at the 28 meters per second, or just because it was rotating that it wouldn't violate the speed limit?
I think it's slower than the speed. I think if theoretically, if they went faster than the speed limit, then the thing would stop.
Okay, cool.
That's just my impression. Anyway, cool. Let's go ahead and move on to the final storyline. Let's talk about the Martian, Bobby Draper, and how. I don't know if I have a whole lot to say about this, but we take off right from we left off, where she takes Holden on board the ship. And it's good that it shows that Bobby was smart, because she was able to figure out what had changed. And right before they would just go flying off, they would have all been stuck there. So that was a great scene. But once she gets on board, this other Martian douchebag a-hole guy kept saying, "Oh, fuck Holden, he killed our lieutenant, it's all his fault, let's just kill him." And the thing with that is, I expected that, and I actually do think that is in the Martian Marine characters. In fact, I think they should act this way, so I don't dislike this. I just hope we don't spend too much time, because that is kind of a cliche story. Like, I hope it doesn't lead to a thing where the Martian guy actively tries to kill him, and Bobby has to stop him or whatever. But as long as it doesn't do that, then I think it was fine. The way it worked for this episode worked for this episode. And then it seemed like even the pilot guy took the side of the a-hole guy and was like, "Yeah, Bobby, you should be." And like, after Ashford made that announcement and that they were like being like racist towards about those stupid skinnies, blah blah blah, and she's like, "Look, that's a thing to do. We all need to help each other." And it seems like after she said that, the other two Martians looked at and shook their heads. So it seems like they don't like Bobby Draper. So in other words, they're idiots, and they don't like someone who's actually smart and knows what she's doing. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this?
It seems to me that like almost all of the other Martians that we ever see besides Bobby Draper are just kind of complete boneheads like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember all the way back, but it seems like most of them are just complete idiots like that. Like, just don't know what the hell's going on, and just what, I don't know. Just Holden, it's all Holden. Like, I don't know. It just seems like typical Martian behavior. Bobby Draper is the only Martian that has any sense at all. And Alex, of course, he's Martian as well. But it just seems like they're all a bunch of idiots from what I've seen.
Yeah, I was a little annoyed with well, let's get revenge and let's kill him. You saw what he did, because it is kind of a boneheaded, just soldier stereotype maneuver. And I understand them not liking Bobby because they probably don't trust her. Oh, you were with Holden, you were on this, you betrayed us, but now you're back. I could understand where there might be a little scuttlebutt, a little problem, a little doubt in their minds as to her loyalty. What I would have liked her response to have been more technical and less, or tactical and less almost kind of emotional, to just, when they're asking about, we should just finish him off, to be like, idiots. He was in there. He might have answers for what's going on. We have to be sure we're into it. Shooting him now would be a tactical mistake. What kind of soldier are you? Something like that, I think, might have snapped them more into line, because otherwise it was just like, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to take him back. It didn't do anything to correct their assumption. And there was one thing I would have liked to have seen from Bobby, Because, yeah, she's got to think that there must be doubts about her. And she did bring up, hey, I shot at him. You guys all remember that part? So, I mean, she was kind of smart and obviously does pay attention. She did point out the speed limit so they didn't get trapped in there like they would have been. So I would have just appreciated a little bit more of that tactical reinforcement where they have to start thinking of her like she knows what she's doing and not a compromised loyalty idea.
Yeah, and this does kind of settle.
Well, especially since. Oh, I was just gonna say, especially since she knew about the new speed limit, she figured that out right away. And they did say like, "Oh, how did you know about that?" And she explained it, and they're like, "Oh, okay." But they didn't give her any credit for that. Like, "Oh, maybe you know what's happening here. Maybe you're pretty smart." Like they didn't give her a shred of credit. Anyway, go on, Mark.
Yeah, well, I mean, when she first pointed out, they were like, "Oh, good job, Gunny," and that's it. But then they still treat her like she doesn't know what she's doing, which is dumb. But yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of still an argument that we had last week in our discussion video because we were sort of wondering whether or not Bobby actually fired at Holden or if she fired at something else. But she says here outright, "I fired at him, like I shot at him. I was gonna kill him." So I was like, okay, that's a little rough, which is kind of what I thought. But yeah, so it's interesting. We also get the exposition and the scene that it will take them 7 months to get to leave the ring, to get to the exit of the ring, and most of the ships can't move at all. They're trapped in that purple haze thingy, and they only have like little small skiffs. And even that couldn't evacuate everyone. Even that doesn't have enough provisions for food. So this is setting up a huge, huge dilemma going forward. And I love how when they mentioned this to Bobby Draper, she's like, "Yeah, we'll work it out." It's like, "Oh, we'll think of something. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, I like that too. I like that too. She's basically like, "Hey, I'm a main character on the show. I'll figure something out." Like they're not going to kill me off. We'll figure it out.
Well, yeah, and I thought that worked well from us. To me, that's the better soldier standpoint to come from. It's like, yeah, we'll figure out that. That's the next problem. We have a more immediate problem we have to sort on. We focus on that, and then we can focus on, what's going on, or the smart people will be able to figure this out, or, even then he could probably use that. Well, then I guess we better get as much information from this Holden guy instead of shooting him to see if we can stop that. But I really did appreciate that sense of scale that brings up with how vast these distances are and how long it would take to travel something that, earlier was, an hour, a couple of hours possibly, and now is 7 months in order to pass. So I really enjoyed that moment. I love getting that kind of sense of scale of the reality of how far that they have traveled.
Yeah, absolutely. It did work very well. And I don't know, I kind of saw Bobby's attitude as like she wasn't even worried about it. She seemed to have the way she says, like, "Yeah, we'll figure it. It's not like that is a problem, but we'll have to focus on this now. I got more than person." Yeah, it'll be all right. I don't know. That's just the way she said it.
They face down a proto creature. We've done alien. This is fine. That's nothing, man. That's just distance.
So anyway, we in the episode.
You haven't told her. She's like, and Holden is in there. There's all these main characters in there. They're not killing them off.
We just got picked up for season 4. We're definitely not dying.
Exactly. She's like, "Oh, we got picked up for season 4. We're fine."
Yeah. So anyway, so we end the episode with Holden finally wakes up. I don't know. I guess there's some episodes where Holden wasn't that present, but it seemed like he wasn't really in this episode at all. It's just like coma or whatever. I think some people. I heard actually the opinion that we didn't focus on any of the main Let's Not Take crew on this episode. Like we hardly got any of them. We got mainly the other supporting characters like Anna and Drum and Ashford. And I think people were complaining, saying that's why this episode wasn't that good. I don't know if I agree with that, but I kind of would have. I to me, the most interesting thing about the show was the Miller and Holden stuff at the moment. So I was a bit disappointed we didn't get any in this episode, but I'm sure we'll get a lot in the next two. So maybe it's kind of like the pacing, they need to set things up. But we in the episode with Holden having this whole doomsday saying, it's like, oh, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it seemed to imply that humanity is pretty fucked. He's like, oh, we're all at risk, which I thought was a really intense way to the episode. But anyway, I can hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't really have any huge problem with Holden being on the sidelines because I did view this as kind of the setup for the two-part finale. I mean, if this had happened one of next week, I would have been like, what the fuck are they doing? But he's going to be there for the end game. And it did kind of have a little bit of a shocking effect where Holden has the line where I saw the end of all of us. I saw the end of humanity. And I mean, that has a little bit of more of an effect because he was asleep the whole time and then he just wakes up at the very end and says this. And because I view this as and that we're setting up for the final 2 hours of the show of the season, I was totally okay with it. I thought it worked fine. I didn't have any issue with Holden or the other Rocinante crew being on the sidelines in this episode. If that were next week, it would be a different story. But because I kind of was thinking of this as a setup episode, I thought it worked.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that you have to deal with when you have these larger casts and you have so many different stories going on, is you can't always focus on the main characters. And you're right. If they're going to do this at any point to catch everybody else up and around in their storylines to set up with what's going on so they can focus more on the crew of the Rossi, yeah, that I am totally fine with that. I would have liked a little bit more from Holden, but I mean, I guess I understand why they wanted to kind of sideline all of those storylines. We did have a big Holden bit last episode. We had a big reveal. I mean, again, I missed you guys last week. That ending was so awesome. I was like, man, that's a 2001 type scope of imagery, which I really loved. So now I think it's like, okay, we had all of that. We got to catch everybody else so it doesn't drag on with, you can't lose all those story threads. So yeah, it worked fine with me. Like I said, it's just, this was that necessary middle episode where we got to catch and reorient everybody before we do the big rush towards the end.
Yeah, earlier in the chat, I kind of lost it here, but Chip was saying that they really liked this episode and didn't mind it being focused too much on Holden. That was a great episode. So, yeah, there's a lot of different opinions. And I can definitely see it. I don't think personally it was a bad episode because we didn't focus on this. I think, yeah, I was fine with that. And yeah, and as you guys say, it was a good setup for the big finale, but I do think the pacing would have been a bit better. But in the chat, kind of Doomsday asked, where the hell is Monica's story? Which is, the documentarian reporter who's also listed out there. I assume she's not important to the story, so that's why we haven't seen her. I think she's probably... I assume they got to the Martian safely. I guess it might have been nice if they actually confirmed this, but I think if she's important to the story, we'll see her again. I do hope they at least have a throwaway.
At least have a little throwaway scene or something in there. They can't just. If we don't see them again in the season, then I'm going to say those characters are in the first place. They're pointless. I know them sabotaging the ship, but I mean, you could find another way to have that happen without that guy. If we don't see them again, then why do we need them? I think you have to follow up on them, at least a throwaway scene, something that we know that they made it off the ship. And we mentioned, I think it was last week it was last week or the week before, where they had them in the previously on. We were going to see them, and then you don't. and it almost made me think maybe there's a deleted scene that to take that part out of the previously on. So it was really odd that we saw them in the previously on. I think that was last week, and then didn't get the follow up on them. It was really strange. So I would think we're going to see something from them.
Yeah, well, my guess is Monica's going to show up, and she's going to be why they end up releasing Holden. I mean, he's not going to spend the next 2 episodes in a Martian brig or being interrogated. So my guess is either in between then she shows up, or she shows up after they arrive. I mean, I don't know the vectors everybody was traveling on, so what the timing on that should be. But yeah, that's my guess is how she's going to do it. She's going to pop and be like, no, I was there. They didn't do it. This is the material somebody sabotaged and they sent this and blah, 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 blah. So that's where I'm guessing where she's probably going to show back up. Because, again, Holden's got to do stuff. You can't leave him for 2 episodes locked inside of a Martian brig. So if they're going to release him quickly, there's got to be some understanding that he didn't do it. Though, I mean, I'm sure the Martians still want the Rossi, so not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah, Dina in the chat was saying that Monica's story's in the previews for the next episode. And I saw the previews and I didn't catch her, but maybe I just missed it. So maybe that explains it. She will be.
Well, when we're ready for final one other thing that's kind of unrelated to anything we've talked about,
go right ahead.
We're talking about putting Holden on the sidelines, putting main character on the sidelines. I'm still perturbed by the fact that we're watching a whole half of the season and Avrasarella is just a background character. To me, she was my favorite character on the show. So, and all we've seen her is making a couple speeches on the TV, and that she's not involved in this at all. This whole storyline bugs me. I'm not gonna lie. Like, she was my favorite character on the show, and I mean, I know if this is probably how the books were written, and it's how you're gonna shoehorn her in there, that would probably be difficult. But so I could kind of probably understand why she's not in it, but it bugs me a hell of a lot more than Holden sitting out of 1 episode. Avrasarella being out of 6 episodes now, then just a couple of little speeches that she makes that are inconsequential. So I don't know if there's any hope of her somehow appearing in the final 2 episodes or not. But if there were a way to work her in, I would be very happy for it. And another character that just kind of disappeared is Fred Johnson. What about him getting the proto-molecule? That it was a big deal. Everybody was mad at Naomi for giving it to him, and now it's inconsequential, never's been mentioned again. So that seems like an abandoned storyline to me that was such a big deal earlier. So those are my thoughts on a couple of missing pieces to the show right now.
Yeah, personally, I don't.
Any response to that, Mark?
Yeah, personally, I don't miss Fred Johnson as much. Maybe because of books or whatever. I know where they're going with it. But with Avrasarella, I completely 100% agree. Even though she wasn't in book 3, but she also wasn't in book 1, and they found a way to include her as a main character in season 1 and the start of season 2 that covered book 1. I thought it worked very well, and they did a very good job, and she's been a major character since the very first episode. And so I had just assumed they would find some way to work her in this book 3 storyline, or maybe show what she's up to back in Earth. But leaving her out entirely, I'm very unhappy about. In fact, that's one of my major complaints about the season overall, because even in the first half of the season, when she was in it, I thought they really underused her, especially when compared to books. So I think, and she's also my favorite character, and I thought she got a very short change the entire season.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear real quick. I don't miss Fred Johnson. I miss the follow-up on the proto-molecule story that was such a huge deal. Everybody got mad at Naomi for it. And then it seems to me it was not Fred Johnson himself that I'm missing. It's that storyline seems to have been abandoned.
Well, but that's still a case of I kind of know where they're going with this, and I'm kind of okay with it.
Well, and yeah, and I think I think that's probably part of the cost of how they've set the season up. I mean, I had mentioned how I kind of like them changing books in the middle of the season because it kind of keeps the new storyline in and we get sort of invested before the season goes out. But the downside of that is it does seem like they've got to kind of rush everything. And because of that, they can only focus on a few of the characters, a few of the stories. I mean, again, I haven't read any of the books, so I don't know how much they're covering of book 3 in this season, if they're trying to shoot through the whole thing so they can get back out of the ring and then be able to engage these other characters. I mean, while they're inside the ring, they're not supposed to be able to communicate with anyone. So it does sort of focus the storyline, I think, right in there. So whatever else is going on in the outside world is kind of cut off from them. So, I mean, I kind of get that. But I think that might be sort of the cost of where they're focusing and how they're trying to run through the storylines. Again, not having read the books, I can't really counterplay where they could have done things differently or alternate. But I would have liked to have seen more than Avasarala, but I understand why they have to kind of focus on where they are right now.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, but in the chat, people are pointing out that the actor who plays Fred Johnson is also on the Orville. But he has a really minor role on the Orville, and his role on the Expanse was that they
I had no idea about. Yeah, I had no idea about that until Iron Throne was brought that up. I had no idea that was him because he's got the alien makeup on.
Yeah, I think
That's
I'd
what
heard
big
that.
makeup masks do.
Yeah, but I didn't notice that from watching the show. I had no idea. I think someone had to point it out. But yeah, I think he would. I mean, they're both minor roles. I think he would have had time to do both of them to appear on the Expanse.
I don't think he was saying that was because of that. He was just making a joke.
Oh, right.
He was busy laying an egg.
Cool. Well, anyway, let's go ahead
raising
and
his egg child.
let's go ahead and wrap this discussion up. Thank you guys so much for joining. Everyone in the chat who joined the discussion. Dina, everyone joining, and people watching this archives, thank you so much. And of course, Darrin Atkin, thank you guys so much. As usual, great to talk about the Expanse. So just a real quick shout out what you guys are up to on your channels, where people can find you, what's going on. We'll start with you, Darrin.
Yeah, thanks again, Mark, for having me. Always a blast to chat with you about the Expanse. And thanks everyone for watching and joining up in the chat. You can always catch me over at D's Reviews. We're just wrapping up Westworld this week, getting ready to start Preacher Season 3. It's the only thing I'm doing this summer. I've got a few little side projects I want to have time to work on, and I do have other life stuff I need to dedicate time to. So a little bit of a light summer. But yeah, Preacher, really a blast. Very crazy show. Highly recommend it. And that starts this Sunday. And you can also always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at DARRINJAQUES.
Okay.
Oh, and hello, and of course I'm Akton Tamko. You can catch me on Akton Tamko's channel. Currently, right now, my main thing is I'm covering Westworld. I've done every episode review. Just keep getting longer and longer because I just have more and more to say to analyze these episodes. And also, as very moment, I am uploading my Westworld Season 2 finale preview and predictions video. So it's uploading now. It should be ready in the next hour or two. So check that out. Now, admittedly, a lot of it is me going, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be awesome. But I do also, I have some really solid things to say about the Man in Black and the other plot lines. So it's not all that, but I'm very excited for the finale. So please check out my preview, uploaded within the hour, and then check out my review of the finale of Westworld, and then I'll be back here. Big week coming up. We got Westworld and Expanse finales next week to talk with Mark about the big Expanse 2-part finale. So can't wait.
Cool. And finding me for the first time, my channel is Enchantment of Eternity. I'm Mark, and I do weekly reviews on each episode of The Expanse, as well as these great discussion videos. I also cover a lot of other shows like Star Trek. I'm just now wrapping up my coverage of every single Star Trek movie. This week I'll be doing the latest Star Trek film, Star Trek Beyond, and with that, I'm going to do a very quick video ranking all the Star Trek movies in order, which is going to be very controversial in the sense that nobody's going to agree with me, but that's cool. That's great. You can check that out for that regard. And also, I'm binging Westworld Season 2 at the moment. I got through the first 4 episodes, and so I will do a review on the whole season as a whole later on this week as well. And hopefully we can do some discussion video with these guys as well. So looking forward to that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching.